There's something uniquely unsettling about a knock at the door. It's supposed to mean a visitor, a delivery, someone familiar. But when it comes unexpectedly, especially late at night, it triggers a primal sense of danger. A door is the thin line between safety and whatever is waiting on the other side. These are 3 true stories from people whose ordinary lives were interrupted by strangers at their door, and nothing was ever the same afterward. The first story is called The Man Who Knew My Name. I used to live alone in a small apartment complex on the outskirts of town. It wasn't a bad area, just quiet. The kind of place where nothing really happened, which was exactly why I chose it. That night started like any other. I got home from work around 7, made dinner, and spent the evening watching TV. By 10:30 I was getting ready for bed when I heard a knock at the door. It wasn't loud or urgent, just 3 steady knocks. I paused, confused. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the time, 10:47 p.m. Too late for neighbors, too late for deliveries. I walked quietly to the door and looked through the peephole. A man stood in the hallway. He looked normal enough. Mid-30s, average height, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans. His hands were visible, resting at his sides. He wasn't fidgeting or acting strange. I asked through the door who it was. He leaned forward slightly and said my name. Not yelled, not questioned, just said it calmly, like we already knew each other. My stomach dropped. I asked how he knew my name. There was a pause, just long enough to feel uncomfortable. You dropped something earlier, he said. I'm just trying to return it. I hadn't dropped anything. I asked him what it was. He smiled. At least, I think he did. I couldn't fully see his face through the peephole. It's easier if you open the door, he said. I told him to leave it outside. Another pause. I really need to hand it to you, he replied. It's important. I didn't move. I stood there, heart pounding, staring through the peephole. He stayed perfectly still, like he was waiting me out. I told him I was calling the police. His expression changed instantly. The friendly calm disappeared. His face went blank. Without another word, he turned and walked down the hallway, disappearing around the corner. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I contacted the apartment manager. They checked the cameras. The footage showed him entering the building just before he knocked on my door. He didn't appear to be holding anything. He went straight to my unit, knocked, waited, and then left. What disturbed me most was what the manager told me next. The man had been seen on camera multiple times that week, always in the evenings, standing in the parking lot, looking up at the building, always at my window. I moved out 2 weeks later. I never learned who he was or how he knew my name. Our second story is the fake emergency. I was home alone one afternoon while my husband was at work. It was around 3 p.m., broad daylight. The doors were locked, but the windows were open to let in fresh air. I was in the kitchen when I heard frantic knocking at the front door. This time it was loud, urgent, repeated. I rushed over, startled, and asked who it was. A woman's voice answered. She sounded panicked. Please, I need help. My car broke down and my phone's dead. I looked through the peephole. A young woman stood on the porch. She looked distressed, hair messy, eyes wide, hands shaking. Everything about her seemed genuine. I cracked the door open, keeping the chain latched. She thanked me quickly and asked if she could come inside to use the phone. I told her I'd call roadside assistance for her instead. Her expression changed, just slightly, but enough for me to notice. She insisted again, said it was an emergency, said she needed to call her sister. Her voice trembled, but something about it felt rehearsed. I told her to wait and closed the door completely. Through the door, I heard her breathing change. The panic disappeared. That's not going to work, she said quietly. I froze. Then I heard movement on the porch, heavy footsteps. More than one person. My heart started racing. I ran to the back of the house and locked the sliding door just as someone tried the handle. There was pounding now, not just on the front door, but on the windows. A man's voice joined hers, angry, demanding. I locked myself in the bathroom and called 911. By the time police arrived, they were gone. The officers told me similar incidents had been reported in nearby neighborhoods. If someone opened the door, others would rush in from hiding. I sat in silence after they left, replaying how close I'd come to opening that door fully. Because it was daylight, because she looked harmless, because everything about the situation felt normal at first. It took years before I stopped jumping every time someone knocked. Finally, we have the visitor who wouldn't leave. I lived in a small town where people didn't really lock their doors during the day. Everyone knew everyone. and strangers stood out. That's why the knock at my door just after midnight immediately felt wrong. I was sitting in my living room reading when it happened. 3 slow knocks. I didn't answer. A few seconds passed, then 3 more knocks. I stood up and walked quietly to the door, peeking through the window beside it. A man stood on my porch. He was older, maybe late 50s or early 60s. He wore a long coat and stood with his hands clasped in front of him, like he was being polite. I asked what he wanted. He smiled and said he was looking for someone who used to live there. I told him he had the wrong house. "Oh," he said, still smiling. "That's strange. I was sure this was the right place." I told him again that no one by that name lived there anymore. He nodded slowly. "Then maybe you can help me instead," he said. I asked how. "I just need to come inside for a minute," he replied. "It's cold." It wasn't cold, it was summer. I told him I couldn't let him in and suggested he come back during the day. His smile faded. "That's not how this works," he said. My blood ran cold. He stepped closer to the door, placing one hand flat against it. "I know you're alone," he continued calmly. "I've been watching the house all evening." I backed away, heart pounding, and grabbed my phone. As soon as I said I was calling the police, he stepped back. "Go ahead," he said. "I'll be right here." But he wasn't. By the time officers arrived, the porch was empty. They searched the area but found nothing. The next morning, I noticed muddy footprints near the side of my house, leading to my bedroom window. The police came back and took photos. They told me to be careful, to keep my doors locked. A week later, my neighbor stopped by and asked if I'd had a visitor recently. When I said yes, she went pale. She told me an older man matching that description had been knocking on doors late at night for years. Always polite, always asking to come inside. No one knew where he came from. No one knew where he went. And no one who let him in ever talked about what happened. I sold the house within the year. A knock at the door seems harmless, ordinary, something we deal with almost every day. But these stories are reminders that sometimes the most terrifying moments don't come with warning signs or dramatic build-up. They come quietly. They stand right outside. And all it takes is one wrong decision to open the door for everything to change. Thanks for watching. If you have a story you'd like to share, you can submit it at the link in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more true scary stories.